I took a terrifying cab ride. This happened to me about 6 years ago on July 1st, 2014. In Canada, July 1st is a national holiday, and in Vancouver, where I'm from, there's always fireworks in English Bay around 10 p.m. The bay is on the west side of the city and is usually packed with locals enjoying the day off and enjoying the fireworks. This means that the public transport is slow, particularly after 10:30 when the fireworks end. I had just finished a big project and had gotten a nice little bonus from work, so I spent the day shopping with a friend and then walked down to the nearest beach with her to meet up with a few others to watch the fireworks and smoke a joint. Vancouver is pretty bike friendly, and I normally bike everywhere, especially in nice weather. But my friend's bike happened to have a broken chain that day, so we taken the bus out, which means we were also taking it back home. After the fireworks were over, we were lucky enough to catch one of the first buses home towards the east side of the city, where we both lived. The trip took way longer than usual, because of both holiday traffic downtown and the bus itself being packed with people wanting to get on and off at every single stop. By the time the bus got us to our transfers, which was about halfway home for both of us, the trip had taken about an hour instead of 20 minutes. East Hastings Street also contains a seedy section of town. Vancouver's safe injection site is there. There's a lot of open drug use, addiction, and all that other stuff. I have a lot of friends that work with social programs in the neighborhood or are nurses in the area, and I never once felt unsafe there at any point, but I just want to give you an idea of my surroundings. My friend and I lived maybe only 15 blocks apart at the time, but the fastest way home for each of us was served by two different routes that both stopped pretty much outside of our respective rentals. After making sure I was okay, my friend grabbed her bus home and I waited for my bus to show. It was about midnight at this point. After about 30 minutes, I was getting tired of waiting and also just in general. No buses were showing up, it was getting late, and I wanted to go home. I saw a cab coming down the street, by some miracle empty, hailed it, got in, and told the driver my address, and we drove in silence for a few minutes. As we started passing through a particularly rough stretch of Hastings, my driver started talking. "Look at all these people," he said. Thinking he was talking about the holiday partiers, I agreed that it was pretty busy tonight. "No," he said. "Look at all these sluts and whores. Look at all these dirty people selling it on the street. They're worthless women." I was pretty shocked. I didn't say anything, but he carried on his tirade for another couple minutes before abruptly stopping mid-sentence and falling silent. He made eye contact with me in the rearview mirror and said, "But you don't have to worry about that. You're a good girl," which creeped the hell out of me and made me want to get out the cab immediately. Traffic was pretty light at this point, and up ahead a couple blocks I could see there was a police road check, so I decided I would get out there, since, he would have to stop or at least slow down enough to where I wouldn't get hurt getting out the car. Before I could put my plan into action, though, he turned off onto a side street and then onto a street running parallel to Hastings. We were still heading east, but we were now further south, away from my house. At this point, I was feeling kind of panicky. I asked if he could turn back onto Hastings since we were heading away from my address, and he said he couldn't. I asked him why, and he said there was too much traffic there and that this route would be faster. As he said that, he locked the doors and made eye contact with me in the mirror, saying in a strained, joking kind of voice, "Plus, if we stopped at that road check, we'd have to tell them what's going on in here, and we don't want that." I was terrified, and I blurted out, "What the fuck is happening here?" But he didn't answer me. He just kept driving in silence and smiling strangely at me in the rear view. I'm a pretty anxious person, and I don't like cab rides late at night in general, but I was pretty sure I wasn't overreacting, and it crossed my mind that he might kill me. There were maybe a few cars, but the sidewalks were empty, and we were in the industrial part of town with warehouses and no reason for people to be out on the street this late at night. The side street curved, and thankfully another police road check that had been hidden from view was pretty much right in front of us. It was a one-way street, and both lanes had checks on them, with the cops waving some cars through and motioning for others to pull over. This meant there was a bit of backup in both lanes, and no way to avoid it. I undid my seatbelt and started to grab for the door handle. The driver saw me and said, "Don't even think about it. Don't even roll down the window. If we get stopped at the road check, don't say a word." Well, I didn't listen to any of that. Just unlocked the door and yanked it open at the same time, basically sprinting across a lane of traffic to get to the gas station on the other side of the street, crying. I left all my purchases in the cab, and he didn't stick around to get his fare, just sped away after getting waved through the road check. In my fear, I didn't think to get the number of the cab, and now years later I can't even remember what company it was. I wish I had said something to the cops at the road check, but I was shaking and I just wanted to go home. Lock my doors, my windows, crawl into bed. I don't know if the driver was worried about me skipping out on my fare or something more sinister was going on, but from time to time I think about it. And I always make sure I have a plan to get home that doesn't involve a taxi if I'm out and it's getting late. You should too.